Hello there, and welcome back. Tonight we are going to move slowly through 150 God of War facts. Not as a numbered list, and not as a rushed timeline, but as a long quiet walk through Ash, Olympus, Sparta, Midgard, prophecy, fatherhood, old weapons, old gods, and the strange road that turns Kratos from a man ruled by rage into a man trying to be worthy of peace. So settle in, let the blades cool, let the snow fall softly outside the cabin, let the axe rest near the door, the shield stay folded, and the old stories drift by one at a time. God of War began in 2005 on the PlayStation 2, developed by Santa Monica Studio and published by Sony Computer Entertainment. That first release matters because it introduced Kratos as a figure built from myth and fury, not as a clean heroic warrior. The game took Greek mythology, changed it freely, and pushed it through a violent action tragedy about service, betrayal, guilt, and revenge. From the beginning, the series was never interested in retelling myths like a museum plaque. It used myths as a forge. The creator and director of the first God of War was David Jaffe. The original game drew inspiration from Greek myth, but also from cinematic adventure, dark fantasy, and the idea of taking familiar gods and monsters into a more brutal, adult tone. That creative looseness became part of the series' identity. God of War does not ask whether its version of Ares, Zeus, or Hades is academically pure. It asks whether those gods can serve Kratos' nightmare. Kratos is Spartan, and that single fact shapes almost everything about him. Sparta in the games is a place of origin, but also discipline, violence, obedience, pride, military identity, and emotional starvation. Kratos grows from a culture that prizes victory and endurance above softness. This makes his later fatherhood more interesting, because he's not simply learning to be kinder. He is trying to build a self that his original world never taught him to be. The red tattoo on Kratos' body is not decoration. It honours his brother Deimos, who had a similar birthmark. In Ghost of Sparta, the story reveals that Deimos was taken by Ares and Athena because of a prophecy involving a marked warrior who would bring about the downfall of Olympus. The gods misunderstood the prophecy, believing Deimos was the threat. Their mistake helped create the real threat, Kratos himself. Kratos' ash-white skin is one of the darkest facts in the entire series. After Ares tricks him into killing his wife Lysandra and daughter Calliope, their ashes become bound to his flesh, giving him the title Ghost of Sparta. His pale body is a punishment, a memory, and a visual curse. Every battle afterward is fought by a man literally wearing the dead. The design is iconic because the tragedy is visible before he speaks. The Blades of Chaos were given to Kratos by Ares after Kratos pledged his life to the God of War. They are chained to his arms, which makes them feel less like weapons and more like shackles. They can be swung with wild speed and reach, but the deeper fact is that they represent servitude. Kratos kills with them, survives with them, and is haunted by them. When they return in the Norse saga, they bring the Greek past back into his hands. The first God of War follows Kratos as he seeks Pandora's box to defeat Ares. The box is hidden in a temple, chained to the back of the Titan Kronos, who wanders the desert of lost souls as punishment. That image is pure God of War, a puzzle box of divine power placed on the body of a punished Titan, with a mortal warrior crawling through a temple that itself moves across a wasteland. The series has always loved scale that feels impossible. Pandora's box contains the power that allows Kratos to kill Ares, but later games reveal a deeper truth. When Zeus sealed the evils of the Great War inside the box, hope was placed there too. Opening the box gave Kratos the power to defeat a god, but it also released fear into Zeus and other gods. This retcon makes the first game's victory more tragic. Kratos does not simply end Ares, he begins the collapse of Olympus. Ares is the first god Kratos kills in the main saga, and the act changes his status forever. After killing Ares, Kratos becomes the new god of war. This is not a happy promotion, it is a trap in the shape of victory. Kratos wanted release from nightmares, but the gods deny him that peace. So he sits on Ares' throne with the same rage that made him useful. Now turn toward Olympus itself. God of War 2 was released in 2007, also on PlayStation 2, and was directed by Cory Barlog. It begins with Kratos as the god of war, leading Spartan armies and defying the other gods. Zeus betrays him, drains his power into the blade of Olympus, and kills him. That betrayal turns Kratos' rage away from one god and toward the entire Olympian order. The sequel widens revenge from personal vendetta to divine rebellion. The blade of Olympus is one of the most important weapons in the Greek saga. Zeus originally uses it to end the Great War against the Titans, pouring godly power into the blade. Later, he uses it to strip Kratos of divine power. The weapon carries the idea of concentrated authority. Whoever holds it is not simply armed. They hold a piece of Olympus's history of domination. The Sisters of Fate are central to God of War 2 because Kratos refuses to accept even fate as final. Clotho, Lachesis and Atropos control the threads of life and destiny, but Kratos invades their domain and kills them. This is one of the clearest examples of how extreme his rebellion becomes. He fights enemies and then attacks the structure that says events cannot be changed. Kratos' hatred becomes metaphysical. God of War 2 ends with Kratos bringing the Titans forward through time to attack Olympus. That cliffhanger is huge because it turns one man's revenge into a mythological war. The Titans, ancient enemies of the Olympians, become his army. But the tragedy is that Kratos is still using everyone around him as tools, the same way Ares once used him. He is fighting tyranny while repeating tyranny's habits. God of War 3 arrived in 2010 on PlayStation 3 and completes the Greek trilogy. It opens with Kratos and the Titans climbing Mount Olympus while the gods prepare for war. The scale is immediate and overwhelming. Poseidon is fought while the Titan Gaia is still climbing the mountain, and the battle feels like an entire mythological painting moving at once. The game makes clear that the end of Olympus will not be tidy. Killing Poseidon causes the seas to rise and flood the world. This is one of the most important environmental consequences in the series. In earlier games, killing gods can feel like victory over powerful bosses. God of War 3 makes those deaths catastrophic. The gods are corrupt and cruel, but they are also tied to the structure of the world. Killing them breaks reality around them. Killing Hades releases the souls of the underworld, and the dead begin to spill free. Killing Helios darkens the sky. Killing Hermes unleashes plague. Killing Hera causes plant life to wither. These consequences make Kratos' revenge horrifying. He may be justified in hating Olympus, but the world pays the bill. The Greek saga becomes an apocalypse caused by divine corruption and mortal rage meeting without restraint. Zeus is Kratos' father, and that revelation turns the Greek saga into a family catastrophe. Kratos kills his father, just as Zeus once overthrew Kronos, and Kronos once overthrew Uranus in Greek myth. The series repeatedly uses the cycle of sons destroying fathers. In the Norse era, Kratos' greatest fear is that Atreus may inherit that cycle. The old pattern is not dead just because Olympus falls. Athena's role becomes stranger after her death. Kratos kills her by accident in God of War 2 when she sacrifices herself to protect Zeus. Afterward, she returns in a higher spiritual form and becomes more manipulative, urging Kratos toward the power of hope. Athena is not simply a wise helper, she becomes a reminder that even gods who seem calm may still desire power. Pandora in God of War 3 is designed as a key to the flame of Olympus, but she becomes emotionally important because she forces Kratos to remember tenderness. She's artificial, made by Hephaestus, yet she carries innocence and courage. Kratos tries to protect her, partly because she awakens the buried memory of his daughter. In a game built around brutality, Pandora is a small flame of feeling that revenge has not completely killed. Hephaestus is one of the more tragic Olympian figures in God of War 3. He is disfigured, imprisoned, and desperate to protect Pandora, whom he loves as a daughter. He sends Kratos into danger and eventually tries to kill him, not out of grand villainy, but out of paternal fear. This makes him a mirror for Kratos in a cruel way. Both are fathers damaged by gods, both make terrible choices, and both are willing to kill for a child. Kratos releases the power of hope at the end of God of War 3 by impaling himself with the blade of Olympus. Athena wants that power for herself, but Kratos gives it to humanity instead. This ending does not erase what he has done. Greece is ruined, the gods are dead. But the choice matters because it is one of the first times Kratos refuses to hand power upward to another god. He lets it go. God of War Ascension was released in 2013 and takes place before the first game. It follows Kratos after he breaks his blood oath to Ares and is hunted by the Furies. The game is important because it explores the moment between enslavement and the older pattern of revenge. Kratos is already violent, already damned, but still closer to the original wound. Ascension shows the chains before they become legend. The Furies in Ascension punish Oathbreakers, which makes them fitting enemies for early Kratos. He made an oath to Ares, and breaking that oath is necessary for freedom, but freedom in Greek tragedy rarely comes cleanly. The Furies represent the ancient force of promises and punishment. Kratos has to kill the guardians of his own binding before he can begin the path toward killing Ares. God of War Chains of Olympus was originally released for PlayStation Portable in 2008. It takes place before the first game, during Kratos' years of service to the gods. The story sends him into conflict with Persephone and Atlas, and it contains one of the series' most painful choices. Kratos briefly reunites with Calliope in Elysium, but must give her up to save the world. This is not rage, it is sacrifice, and it cuts quietly. God of War Ghost of Sparta was released for PSP in 2010 and explores Kratos' search for Deimos. It deepens the family tragedy by showing that Kratos' suffering did not begin with Ares tricking him into killing his family. The gods had already wounded his family long before. Deimos' imprisonment and death show how prophecy creates the doom it tries to avoid. Olympus feared the marked warrior, and its fear helped create him. God of War Betrayal was a mobile game released in 2007, set between the first God of War and God of War 2. It is often forgotten because of its platform, but it is part of the older franchise history. Its story follows Kratos during his time as God of War, and involves accusations, murder, and growing conflict with Olympus. Even in a smaller side entry, the theme is consistent. Power does not calm Kratos. It gives his rage a larger arena. The Greek era is built around revenge, but it is also built around memory. Kratos cannot forget what he has done, and the gods repeatedly exploit that pain. Ares uses his loyalty. The gods use his strength. Zeus uses fear. Athena uses destiny and hope. Kratos' violence is personal, but it is also cultivated by divine systems that know how to turn broken people into weapons. The Norse era begins with God of War, released in 2018 for PlayStation 4 and later on PC. PlayStation's official page describes it as a bold new beginning, with Kratos now living in the realm of Norse gods and monsters, forced to control the rage that once defined him while raising Atreus. That summary matters because the game changes mythology and posture together. Kratos is no longer hunting gods. He is trying to raise a son. The 2018 game famously changes the camera perspective to a closer over-the-shoulder view and presents the journey in a continuous cinematic style without obvious cuts during normal play. This makes the story feel more intimate than the Greek trilogy. The old games often emphasised scale from a distance. The Norse game keeps the camera near Kratos and Atreus, letting silence, breath, and small reactions matter as much as giant creatures. The Leviathan axe belonged to Faye before Kratos uses it. That fact gives the weapon a different emotional weight from the Blades of Chaos. The blades came from Ares and servitude. The axe comes from Faye and family. It was forged by Brock and Sindri to oppose Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. In Kratos' hands, the axe becomes a tool of survival and restraint. Heavy, cold, deliberate, and connected to the woman who quietly shaped the entire Norse story. The axe can be thrown and recalled, which became one of the 2018 game's most recognisable mechanics. In story terms, the recall feels almost ritualistic. Kratos releases the weapon and calls it back, again and again. It is controlled violence, unlike the wild circular fury of the chained blades. The axe returns because Kratos wills it, not because it is chained to him. That difference matters. Atreus is revealed to be part god, part giant, and part mortal. His mother Faye was a giant, and his name among the giants is Loki. This revelation changes the whole 2018 journey. Kratos believes he's taking his wife's ashes to the highest peak, but Faye has guided him and Atreus into a prophecy the giants already knew. The journey is grief, but it is also initiation. Faye is absent for most of the 2018 game, yet she is one of the most important characters in it. Her final wish sets the plot in motion. Her axe arms Kratos. Her hidden identity changes Atreus' future. Her choices send father and son through a path that teaches them what they need to become. Faye is proof that a character can shape a whole story without appearing for long stretches of it. Baldur is the first major Norse god Kratos fights, and his curse is one of the strongest pieces of character writing in the series. Freya's spell makes him invulnerable to all threats, physical or magical, but it also makes him unable to feel anything. He cannot feel pain, but he cannot feel warmth, pleasure, taste, touch, or peace either. His invulnerability is a prison. This turns a simple immortal enemy into a tragedy. Freya casts the spell on Baldur to protect him, and that is what makes the relationship so painful. She acts out of love and fear, but her protection becomes violation. Baldur hates her because she has taken the entire sensory world from him. In the end, Kratos kills Baldur to stop him from killing Freya. The moment is brutal because all three characters are trapped by different forms of love, rage, and control. Mimir is introduced as the smartest man alive, trapped in a tree by Odin. Kratos cuts off his head, Freya revives it, and Mimir becomes a companion on the journey. This sounds grotesque in summary, but in the game it becomes warm and funny. Mimir's stories fill the boat rides, explain the realms, and soften Kratos' silence. A severed head becomes the voice of context. The world's serpent, Jörmungandr, is one of the most memorable beings in the Norse era. He is enormous, ancient, and strangely gentle toward Atreus. Mimir explains that the serpent and Thor fight during Ragnarok so violently that the serpent is knocked back in time. This means Jörmungandr exists as a living paradox. His presence makes the world feel mythic in a quiet way, because time itself has already bent around the coming war. Atreus' illness in the 2018 game comes from the contradiction of being a god while believing himself mortal. This is a clever fantasy idea because it turns identity into a physical condition. Kratos hides the truth to protect Atreus, but secrecy harms him. The cure is magical and also honest. Kratos must tell his son what they are, even though he fears what godhood did to him. When Kratos retrieves the Blades of Chaos in 2018, the moment is one of the strongest in the series. He returns home, unwraps the hidden weapons, and Athena's ghost appears as a reminder of Greece. The blades are not exciting loot, they are trauma. Kratos takes them because he needs their fire to save Atreus in Helheim. The past he buried becomes necessary because his son's life is at stake. Helheim in the Norse era is a realm of cold, memory and punishment. Kratos sees visions of Zeus there, and Atreus sees the consequences of his own arrogance. Helheim does not simply attack with enemies, it shows what characters would rather avoid. This makes it a psychological place as much as a mythological one. The cold is outside and inside. The 2018 game ends in Jotunheim, where Kratos and Atreus discover murals that predicted their journey. They learn that Faye was Laufey the Just, a giant who had opposed the Aesir and hidden her true nature. They also see Atreus' name as Loki. This ending reframes the entire game. What seemed like a personal errand was also a path through prophecy, grief, and giant memory. Kratos sees a hidden mural that appears to show him dying in Atreus' arms, though he keeps it from Atreus. This image becomes one of the emotional engines of Ragnarok. Kratos knows prophecy may be pointing toward his death, and he must decide whether the future is fixed. The old Kratos fought fate by killing it. The older Kratos asks whether he can change fate by changing himself. God of War. Ragnarok was released on November 9th, 2022 for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and later came to PC. The official PlayStation page describes this as continuing the Norse saga, with Atreus seeking knowledge about Loki and Kratos deciding whether fear of repeating his mistakes will chain him or whether he can be the father Atreus needs. That is the whole Norse conflict in one sentence: prophecy outside, parenting inside. Fimbulwinter begins after Baldur's death. In Norse myth, Fimbulwinter is the Great Winter before Ragnarok, and in the game it arrives early because of the events of 2018. This is another example of God of War showing consequences. Kratos and Atreus did not simply end one conflict, they triggered a mythic countdown. The world itself changes because of a death. Thor in Ragnarok is more than a huge hammer-wielding god. He's a broken son, a grieving father, and a weapon Odin has used for generations. His violence is enormous, but the game gives him exhaustion and shame. He drinks, threatens, kills and obeys, yet he is also haunted by what obedience has cost his family. This makes his final refusal of Odin one of the most important moments in the game. Odin is frightening because he is not a giant brute like Thor. He is curious, manipulative, talkative, and obsessed with knowledge. He does not want power only to rule. He wants answers about the mask, the rift, fate, death, and what comes next. That makes him dangerous in a different way from Zeus. Zeus feared being overthrown. Odin fears not knowing. His hunger for knowledge becomes another kind of tyranny. The mask in Ragnarok becomes one of the strangest objects in the Norse saga. Odin believes it can help him look into the rift and discover ultimate truth. Atreus is tempted by it because he genuinely wants answers about himself, the giants, and Loki. The mask becomes a test of curiosity. Knowledge is not treated as evil, but the desire for knowledge without limits becomes dangerous, especially in Odin's hands. Tyr's apparent return in Ragnarok becomes one of the game's major deceptions. The character Kratos and Atreus' rescue is later revealed to be Odin in disguise. The real Tyr is hidden elsewhere. This twist works because Tyr represents the possibility of a different kind of god of war, peaceful, travelled, wise, and opposed to Odin. Odin steals that hope by wearing it as a mask. The real Tyr appears after the main story and becomes central to Valhalla. His existence matters because he offers Kratos a mirror without hatred. Tyr is also a god of war, but he has not defined himself by slaughter. He has travelled across cultures, learned from other lands, and carries a calm that Kratos once lacked. Tyr shows that being a god of war does not have to mean being a servant of rage. God of War, Ragnarok. Valhalla was released as a free add-on after Ragnarok. The official PlayStation page describes it as following the events after Ragnarok, bringing Kratos to the shores of Valhalla, where he sees a path for himself he never thought possible. This add-on is important because it gives Kratos an internal ending after the external war. Ragnarok ends the Norse war. Valhalla asks what Kratos does with himself afterward. Valhalla's structure forces Kratos to revisit memories, weapons, enemies, and versions of himself. It is framed as a challenge, but emotionally it is therapy through mythic combat. Kratos cannot simply defeat a god and walk away. He has to face the fact that he has been many things: Spartan, servant, monster, father, destroyer, protector, and now possible leader. Valhalla makes him speak to the ghost of Sparta instead of running from him. The young Kratos appears symbolically in Valhalla through the throne and memory of the old god of war. This is one of the strongest images in the modern series. Older Kratos looks at the man he used to be, not with simple disgust but with accountability. He does not excuse himself. He also does not deny that he has changed. The moment matters because healing requires truth without performance. At the end of Valhalla, Kratos accepts a seat on Freya's council. This is a huge transformation. The man who once destroyed pantheons now agrees to help govern and rebuild. He does not become innocent. He becomes responsible. That is a stronger ending than simple forgiveness. The story does not say Kratos' crimes vanish. It says he may still choose service over destruction. Freya's arc across the Norse games is one of grief, vengeance, and reluctant trust. After Kratos kills Baldur, she vows revenge, and in Ragnarok, she nearly becomes another parent destroyed by loss. Yet she eventually works with Kratos because Odin is the deeper poison. Her forgiveness is not instant or easy. That makes it more believable. she does not forget Balder. She chooses a future where grief does not belong to Odin. Brock and Sindri are dwarven brothers whose relationship is both comic and tragic. They forged the Leviathan axe and Mjolnir, which means they helped create weapons on both sides of the Norse conflict. Brock is blunt, loyal and rough. Sindri is anxious, precise and deeply attached. Their humour makes the world warmer, which is why Brock's death in Ragnarok hurt so badly. Brock's death is one of the emotional turning points in Ragnarok. Odin, disguised as Tyr, kills him after being exposed. The murder is sudden and ugly, and it shatters Sindri. The tragedy is Brock's death, and the fact that Sindri's generosity helped create the vulnerability Odin exploited. Afterward, Sindri becomes colder, angrier, and harder to comfort. Grief changes him in real time. Sindri's anger at Atreus after Brock's death is painful, because it is not entirely fair, and not entirely wrong. Atreus' choices helped bring Odin close, even if he never intended harm. Sindri had given shelter, tools, and trust. Brock paid the price. God of War is at its best when consequences are emotionally messy. Not every wound can be solved by an apology before the credits roll. Angrboda appears in Ragnarok as a giant who helps Atreus understand his identity and the hidden fate of giant souls. Her home in Ironwood gives the game a slower, softer section focused on prophecy, animals, painting, and destiny. Some find the pacing surprising, but thematically it matters. Atreus needs a space away from Kratos where Loki can breathe. The giants in the Norse saga are not simply large beings. Many are human-sized, wise, artistic, prophetic, and deeply tied to memory. Their shrines and murals tell stories through images, and their survival often depends on hiding from Odin. This differs from the Greek Titans, who are usually presented as massive primordial forces. God of War uses each mythology's giant figures differently. The giant souls hidden in marbles are one of Ragnarok's most important late story reveals. Atreus learns that many giants preserve their souls, and by the end, he leaves to search for them. This gives Atreus his own future beyond Kratos. It also changes the meaning of Loki. He's not simply a trickster prophecy waiting to happen. He's a young person trying to restore a people. Kratos' relationship with Atreus is the heart of the Norse saga. In 2018, he is stern, closed, afraid of softness, and unsure how to explain himself. In Ragnarok, he becomes more open, though still careful. By the end, he can tell Atreus to open his heart to suffering. That line matters because young Kratos survived by closing his heart. Older Kratos survives by teaching his son not to repeat that. The phrase "do not be sorry, be better" became one of Kratos' defining lines in 2018. It sounds harsh at first, but over time it reveals his parenting style. Responsibility over empty apology. Yet Ragnarok complicates it. Being better requires discipline, openness, trust, and compassion. Kratos learns that a son cannot be raised by correction alone. Atreus' bow is more than a weapon. It represents distance, patience, and his connection to Faye, who taught him archery. Atreus fights differently from Kratos, and that difference matters. Kratos is close-range force. Atreus is movement, language, curiosity, and a desire to understand. The bow visually separates son from father, while their journey slowly teaches them how to move together. Atreus' ability to understand languages becomes one of his quiet powers. He can read runes, speak with Jörmungandr in a limited way, and connect to worlds Kratos cannot easily interpret. This reinforces the theme that Atreus is not meant to be a smaller Kratos. His strength lies partly in communication. He is dangerous, but he is also a bridge. Kratos' Spartan rage changes meaning across the series. In the Greek games, rage is almost identity. In the Norse games, rage becomes something he controls and channels. The power remains, but the relationship changes. Kratos still has anger, and the games do not pretend otherwise. The growth is that anger no longer makes every decision for him. The Guardian Shield in 2018 belonged to Faye as well, and it folds onto Kratos' arm when not in use. Its presence matters because Norse Kratos is more defensive than Greek Kratos. The old Kratos was built around offense, chains, and relentless assault. The older Kratos blocks, parries, protects, and creates space for Atreus. A shield is a different philosophy of survival. Ragnarok expands shield choice, giving Kratos different defensive styles. This is a subtle but meaningful development. The series that once defined him by blades now lets defense become expressive. A shield can be aggressive, patient, reactive, or sturdy. Even mechanically, the older Kratos is defined by what he can withstand as much as what he can destroy. The Draupnir spear in Ragnarok becomes one of the most symbolically important new weapons. It is forged from the ring Draupnir and made with a drop of Kratos' blood, giving him a weapon tied to Spartan identity rather than Ares or Faye. It is also a spear, the first weapon a Spartan learns. This makes it feel like Kratos reclaiming Sparta from the nightmare of his past. The spear is created to fight Heimdall, whose foresight makes him nearly impossible to hit. Draupnir can multiply and detonate, overwhelming Heimdall's ability to read attacks. This is a clever combat solution, and a thematically fitting one. Heimdall's arrogance rests on seeing what others will do. Kratos defeats him with a weapon that turns one intention into many. Heimdall is one of the most hateable gods in Ragnarok because he is smug, cruel, and invasive. His ability to read people makes him feel like someone who violates privacy simply by standing nearby. Kratos tries to spare him, but Heimdall refuses to stop. Killing Heimdall becomes one of the moments where Kratos fears prophecy is winning, because he kills despite trying not to. The Norns replace the Fates as the Norse saga's version of destiny, but they are very different from the Sisters of Fate. They do not weave an unavoidable future in the same mechanical way. They explain that people are predictable because they refuse to change. This is a huge shift in the series. Fate is no longer only a cosmic prison. It is habit repeated until it looks inevitable. This idea changes Kratos' entire relationship to prophecy. In Greece, he fought fate by killing the beings who controlled it. In the Norse realm, he fights fate by becoming less predictable. If he changes how he acts, the prophecy changes shape. This is one of the most mature ideas in the series. The real enemy is not the future. It is the self that keeps choosing the same path. Ragnarok's final battle does not end with Kratos killing Odin in a burst of personal revenge. Odin is defeated, trapped in a soul marble by Atreus, and then killed by Sindri, smashing the marble. This matters because it spreads consequence across the whole cast. Kratos does not need to be the one who ends every god. Sindri's grief takes that act, and it leaves a bitter taste. Odin's death does not heal everyone. That is another important fact. Ragnarok ends with survival and liberation, but not perfect restoration. Brock remains dead. Sindri remains wounded. Atreus leaves. Freya still has grief. Kratos still has a long past. The Norse saga understands that ending tyranny does not erase what tyranny has already done. The mural Kratos finds at the end of Ragnarok shows him being worshipped or honoured, not feared. This overwhelms him because he never imagined that future. For a man who has been monster, killer, god, destroyer and exile, the possibility of being loved by people as a protector is almost harder to accept than death. He can understand punishment. He has trouble understanding hope directed at him. Bear McCreary composed the music for the Norse games, and his themes help reshape the series. The deep male vocals, Nordic instrumentation, and emotional motifs give the 2018 game and Ragnarok a weight very different from the Greek saga's furious orchestral style. Music becomes part of the transformation. The old games sound like rage climbing Olympus. The Norse games sound like grief walking through snow. The Greek games used fixed cinematic cameras, while the 2018 game moved to a close camera that follows Kratos continuously. This is a technical fact with emotional consequences. The older camera made Kratos look like a figure inside mythic scale. The newer camera makes him feel like a body close enough to touch. The series moved from spectacle outside him to pressure beside him. Kratos' original voice actor in the Greek era was Terence C. Carson, while Christopher Judge took over the role in the 2018 Norse era. Judge's performance is slower, deeper, and more restrained, fitting an older Kratos who speaks less and carries more. The voice change could have been distracting, but it became part of the reinvention. Kratos sounds like time has passed through him. Danielle Bisutti plays Freya in the Norse games, bringing warmth, fury, grief, and authority to one of the saga's most complicated characters. Sunny Suljic plays Atreus, giving the character impatience and vulnerability across both games. The performances matter because the Norse saga depends less on constant shouting and more on emotional friction. A pause can carry as much weight as a battle cry. The first God of War was released during the PlayStation 2 era, but the franchise has crossed many platforms: PS2, PSP, PS3, PS4, PS5, PlayStation Vita collections, and PC releases for the modern Norse games. This long platform history is part of why the series feels generational. Some people met Kratos as a young destroyer, others met him as a father. The character has aged alongside the series in an unusual way. God of War Collection brought the first 2 games to PlayStation 3, and Origins Collection brought Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta to PS3 as well. These collections helped preserve the Greek saga after the original platforms aged. They also made the chronology easier to experience, though release order and story order remain different. God of War's history is almost mythic in that way. The story is best understood through layers. The chronological order of the Greek saga begins with Ascension, then Chains of Olympus, then God of War, then Ghost of Sparta, then Betrayal, then God of War 2, and then God of War 3. Release order is different, and that difference matters. The series revealed Kratos' past gradually, often after showing the consequences first. His life is told like trauma, present violence first, buried causes later. Kratos' name comes from the Greek word for strength or power, and in Greek mythology, Kratos is also a personification of strength. The game character is not simply that mythological figure, but the name fits almost too perfectly. Kratos begins as strength without peace. The long arc of the series asks what strength is for after revenge is over. Ares choosing Kratos as a servant is one of the great mistakes of the Greek gods. He wants a perfect warrior, someone fierce enough to help him overthrow or challenge Olympus's order. But by stripping Kratos of his family, Ares creates a hatred that eventually kills him. This is a recurring God of War theme. Gods create the weapons that destroy them. Zeus repeats the same mistake. He fears Kratos, betrays him, and tries to kill him before Kratos can overthrow him. But the betrayal ensures Kratos will do exactly that. Odin repeats a version of this pattern too. His manipulation of Atreus, Freya, Thor and others creates the rebellion he fears. Across pantheons, controlling gods keep producing the conditions for their own downfall. Calliope, Kratos' daughter, appears most painfully in Chains of Olympus and in memories across the series. She is the emotional wound behind much of Kratos' rage. The tragedy is that he loved his family deeply, but love twisted into violence after he killed them. The series never lets his grief be clean. His love is real. His crimes are real. Both truths remain. Lysandra, Kratos' wife in Greece, is less developed than Faye, but her death defines the ghost of Sparta. The difference between Lysandra and Faye also shows how the series changed. Lysandra is mostly remembered as lost innocence, while Faye becomes an active shaper of prophecy even after death. The franchise moved from women as wounds in Kratos' past toward women as agents in the story's design. Faye's full name, Laufey, connects her to Loki's mother in Norse mythology. In the game, she is a giant warrior who opposed Odin and worked to protect her people. She also seems to have seen enough of prophecy to guide Kratos and Atreus without controlling every step. This makes her a different kind of strategist from Odin. Odin manipulates to possess knowledge. Faye guides to give her family a chance. Brok and Sindri forging both Mjolnir and the Leviathan axe is one of the best pieces of weapon lore in the Norse saga. They make Thor's hammer, regret the destruction it causes, and later make the axe as a counterweight. The weapons become a conversation between guilt and repair. A blacksmith's work can harm the world, but it can also answer harm. Mjolnir in Ragnarok is brutal, heavy, and tied to Thor's role as Odin's enforcer. The Leviathan axe is its designed opposite, made to match and counter it. When Kratos and Thor fight, their weapons carry histories beyond the strike. Hammer and axe are tools, legacies of dwarven craft, giant suffering, Aesir violence, and Faye's hidden resistance. The first fight between Kratos and Thor in Ragnarok is shocking because Thor briefly kills Kratos and revives him with Mjolnir, demanding that the fight continue. This moment works because it shows Thor's contempt and power at once. He is not fighting only to win. He is trying to drag the old god killer out of Kratos, to see the monster beneath restraint. Thor's final choice to refuse Odin is a quiet victory, even though Odin kills him immediately afterward. Thor finally stops being his father's weapon. The tragedy is that the choice comes late, but late is still meaningful. God of War often lives in that space. A person may not undo the damage, but one honest refusal can still matter. Sif in Ragnarok helps show the damage inside Thor's family. She wants Thrud protected from Odin's influence and from Thor's destructive pattern. Through Sif and Thrud, Thor becomes a father inside a broken household, as well as an enemy on the battlefield. This makes his violence more disturbing because it has domestic consequences as well as battlefield consequences. Thrud wants to become a Valkyrie, and her story suggests a future beyond Thor's shadow. She is proud, fierce and young, shaped by Aesir culture, but not doomed to repeat every part of it. Her survival after Ragnarok gives Asgard's children a small opening towards something different. The Norse saga is full of young people trying to inherit without becoming copies. The Valkyries in the 2018 game are among the toughest optional challenges, but they are also lore-rich. They have been corrupted and trapped in physical forms, and freeing them restores balance to their role in the realms. Sigrun, the Valkyrie Queen, becomes the final and hardest of these fights. The Valkyries are combat trials and a restoration of a broken sacred duty. In Ragnarok, Freya becomes the Valkyrie Queen, which fits her arc beautifully. She moves from isolated grief and revenge into leadership. Her connection to the Valkyries, her Vanir roots, and her broken marriage to Odin all come together. She is not healed by becoming queen. She becomes queen because she is strong enough to continue while wounded. The Valkyrie Gnar appears after Ragnarok as a loyalist to Odin and a major optional challenge. Her presence shows that Odin's death does not instantly end every allegiance. Power structures leave followers behind. Gnar is dangerous because she carries the old regime's fury after the regime itself has fallen. This makes the post-game feel politically alive. The Berserkers in Ragnarok serve as another set of optional high-level challenges, replacing the Valkyrie's role from 2018 in some ways. Their gravestones summon powerful warriors tied to old violence and betrayal. Like many God of War optional fights, they test skill while making the world feel filled with old grudges waiting under stone. The Norse realms are not all equally open in 2018, but Ragnarok expands access across all 9 realms: Midgard, Alfheim, Vanaheim, Svartalfheim, Helheim, Muspelheim, Niflheim, Jotunheim, Asgard, and others. Each carry different environmental and mythological moods. The move from one realm to many gives Ragnarok a feeling of final gathering, as if the whole mythic world is being pulled toward war. Alfheim changes between the games. In 2018, it centres on the conflict between light elves and dark elves over the light of Alfheim. Kratos and Atreus enter without fully understanding the war. Mimir later suggests they may have only helped one side without knowing the full truth. This is a rare moment where the game lets a completed quest remain morally uncertain. Vanaheim in Ragnarok gives Freya's past more space. It shows the Vanir side of the world, her marriage to Odin as a political wound, and the natural magic of a realm damaged by Aesir control. Vanaheim is lush, dangerous, and full of memory. It roots Freya in a culture beyond her relationships with Baldur and Kratos. Svartalfheim introduces dwarven society in Ragnarok, showing the cost of Odin's occupation and industrial control. The realm's mines, wetlands, machines, and settlements expand Brok and Sindri's world beyond the shop. It also lets the story show how Odin's power operates through labour, surveillance, resource control, and gods shouting in halls. Asgard in Ragnarok is surprisingly domestic at first. Atreus visits and finds training yards, food, conversation, awkward family tension, and Odin's study. This is important because evil is more convincing when it has a home life. Odin's Asgard is not a distant castle of pure darkness. It is a place where people live under manipulation and call it normal. Muspelheim and Niflheim have been challenge realms across the Norse games, but they also carry mythological importance as realms of fire and mist. In 2018, Muspelheim tests combat through trials, while Niflheim becomes a deadly maze of mist and resources. These realms make the mythology playable through atmosphere, heat as trial, mist as attrition, danger as repetition. Surtur in Ragnarok is tied to the creation of Ragnarok itself. Kratos and Atreus help bring about the primordial destroyer by joining Surtur's essence with Sin Mara's heart, though the emotional cost is tied to Surtur's love. This reframes apocalypse as sacrifice. Ragnarok is not simply an event that happens. It is made painfully by beings who understand what must be lost. The final assault on Asgard is a coalition, not simply Kratos and Atreus fighting Odin. Freya, Mimir, Freya, the dwarves, giants through Angrboda's aid, realm armies, and others all matter. This matters because old Kratos solved problems by personal violence. Ragnarok is won through alliance. He is still powerful, but he's no longer alone at the centre of every answer. Freya's sacrifice during Ragnarok gives Vanaheim's story a heroic close. He stays behind to hold off Ragnarok's destruction and help others escape. His death adds cost to victory without making the ending hopeless. God of War understands that sacrifice can be noble and still hurt. The story does not use heroism as a way to avoid grief. Mimir's relationship with Kratos is one of the quiet triumphs of the Norse saga. He begins as a source of information and becomes a friend. He calls Kratos brother, tells stories, jokes, warns and challenges him. Because Mimir has no body, his presence is almost entirely voice and mind. That makes the friendship feel strangely pure. He cannot fight beside Kratos in the usual way, but he travels with him through everything. Mimir also carries guilt from his time serving Odin. He is comic relief, an encyclopedia, and a man who knows what Odin did because he helped him, believed him, or failed to stop him. His stories are often attempts to tell the truth after years of complicity. This makes him fit the Norse saga's larger theme. People can be better, but not by pretending they were always good. The boat stories in 2018 and sled stories in Ragnarok are a major part of the series' modern identity. They turn travel time into myth, character, and quiet pacing. Instead of filling every moment with combat, the games let characters talk. For a series once known mainly for rage and spectacle, this is a remarkable shift. God of War learned to let silence and storytelling carry weight. Kratos often says little, which makes his small lines more powerful. A short answer from him can carry years of regret. When he opens up, the moment feels earned. The Norse games understand that a quiet character is not an empty character. Kratos is full of thought. He simply distrusts words because words have often been used to command, deceive, or excuse violence. Atreus talks much more than Kratos, especially in 2018, and that contrast is intentional. He is curious, nervous, excited, angry, and hungry for explanation. His words push against Kratos' silence. Sometimes this annoys Kratos, sometimes it saves him. Atreus' openness is dangerous when it becomes arrogance, but it is also the reason he can become more than a weapon. Kratos naming Atreus after a kind Spartan soldier from his past is a quiet fact revealed near the end of 2018. The original Atreus was one of the few Spartans Kratos remembered as happy and decent. This means Kratos did not name his son after strength, victory, or conquest. He named him after kindness, even before he knew how to be a good father. Part of him wanted his son to inherit something gentler. The phrase "Loki will go, Atreus remains" captures one of Ragnarok's emotional ideas. Atreus has a giant destiny, but he also has a name his father gave him. He is both. The story does not force him to choose between all identities. Growing up means carrying more than one truth. That is a softer, wiser treatment of prophecy than the Greek saga ever allowed. Kratos' relationship with prophecy changes because of Atreus. If Kratos were alone, he might respond to prophecy with violence. Because he is a father, he must ask what his response teaches. Killing fate in front of his son would only pass on the old lesson. Changing himself in front of his son offers a new one. Fatherhood turns philosophy into example. God of War uses mythology as emotional architecture. Greek myth becomes a world of cycles, fathers devouring sons, sons killing fathers, gods using mortals, and revenge breaking creation. Norse myth becomes a world of prophecy, winter, doomed knowledge, family secrets, and the possibility of choosing differently before the end. The pantheons are settings, and also different ways of talking about Kratos' soul. The Greek saga's colour palette often leans into blood, marble, flame, gold, and ash, while the Norse saga uses snow, wood, iron, leather, runes, mist, and cold light. This visual change helps the emotional change. Greece is hot rage and divine ruin. Midgard is colder, quieter, and more grounded. The world itself seems to ask Kratos to slow down. Kratos' beard in the Norse saga became symbolic almost immediately. It visually ages him, but it also softens the silhouette of the old ghost of Sparta. The bald head, red tattoo, and pale skin remain, yet the beard suggests time, concealment, and weariness. It is still Kratos, but no longer the same blade-sharp young destroyer from the Greek era. The 2018 game avoids a traditional jump button, which is a notable mechanical change from the Greek games. This creates a more grounded feeling. Kratos no longer darts across giant puzzle rooms in the same way. He climbs, walks, rows, carries, and moves through spaces with weight. Even movement reflects age and restraint. Ragnarok includes playable Atreus sections, giving the story a different rhythm. These sections matter because they let Atreus exist outside Kratos' direct control. The point is not simply variety, it is emotional separation. Atreus is growing into his own path, and the structure of the game makes that independence felt. Atreus can transform into animals in Ragnarok, including a wolf and bear, connecting him to giant magic and his emotional state. These transformations show power tied to identity and feeling. Kratos' power often comes through weapons and rage. Atreus' power is more fluid, tied to language, soul, animals, and transformation. He is not a copy of his father. Fenrir's soul moving into Garm is one of Ragnarok's strangest and most touching magical events. Atreus accidentally places Fenrir's soul into his knife, and later that soul helps transform Garm into Fenrir again. This gives the Norse saga a gentle kind of soul magic. It is weird, mythic, and emotional all at once. A lost pet becomes part of a cosmic wolf story. Garm tearing holes between realms creates a dangerous problem in Ragnarok, and fixing it requires Atreus to use the soul magic he barely understands. This turns a mistake into growth. Atreus does not solve the problem by pretending he did nothing wrong. He learns enough to repair it. The game keeps teaching that power without responsibility creates damage, but responsibility can follow after damage too. Ratatoska, the squirrel of the world tree, appears in a more expanded form in Ragnarok, with spectral aspects representing parts of his personality. This is one of the game's funnier mythological touches. God of War can be heavy, but it still allows strange humour. A talking squirrel managing cosmic tree business is ridiculous in the right way, and the Norse saga benefits from that looseness. The Huldra brothers' shop, appearing across realms, is one of the series' most convenient and charming bits of magical logic. Brock and Sindri seem to be wherever Kratos needs them, but the games turn that convenience into personality. Their shops are safe pockets of craft, bickering, upgrades and warmth. In a mythic war, the blacksmith's corner becomes home base. The Lake of Nine in 2018 is a brilliant hub because it changes as the water level drops, revealing new areas and secrets. This gives exploration a feeling of gradual uncovering. The world does not simply expand outward. It reveals hidden layers around a central body of water. The lake becomes a memory device. Each return shows that the same place can still have more to say. Tyr's temple in the middle of the Lake of Nine connects realms and hides evidence of Tyr's travels to other mythologies. Inside are references to symbols from lands beyond the Norse world, including Greek, Egyptian, Celtic, and Japanese imagery. This quietly suggests that many mythological worlds coexist in the God of War universe. Kratos' story may have crossed two pantheons, but the cosmos is wider. The presence of other myth symbols around Tyr is one reason fans often wonder where the series could go next. The games themselves have planted the idea of multiple mythic cultures existing in the same broader world. That does not confirm any future setting by itself, but it gives the universe room. God of War is no longer only Greek or Norse. It is a story about gods as a wider problem. Kratos' boat conversations about Greece in 2018 are rare and careful. He does not tell Atreus everything at once. This restraint can be frustrating, but it fits his character. Kratos believes knowledge can harm if given poorly. The tragedy is that silence can harm too. The Norse saga lives in a difficult space between secrecy and confession. Atreus killing Modi in 2018 is one of the first signs that godhood is affecting him badly. After learning he is a god, he becomes arrogant and cruel, dismissing mortals and disobeying Kratos. Killing Modi is not a heroic moment. It frightens Kratos because he sees a possible version of himself forming in his son. This is fatherhood as terror, seeing your worst pattern in someone you love. Magni and Modi, Thor's sons, are important because their deaths bring Thor's family into the conflict before Thor appears directly. Magni is killed by Kratos, Modi is humiliated and later killed by Atreus, and Thor's grief and anger hang over Ragnarok. The Norse saga is full of consequences, arriving one game later. A fight that feels finished is often only the beginning of another family's wound. Kratos' scar across his abdomen comes from Zeus stabbing him with the blade of Olympus in God of War 2. In the Norse games, the scar remains visible. This is another example of the series letting the body remember continuity. The Greek saga is not erased by the reboot-like 2018 title. It is carried in scars, blades, nightmares, and habits. Kratos wraps his forearms in the Norse games partly over the scars and burns left by the chains of the blades of chaos. This costume detail matters because he is literally covering the marks of servitude. When he unearths the blades, the past is symbolic and physical at once. It has been under the cloth the whole time. The body never stopped knowing. The blades of chaos cannot be permanently discarded by Kratos, according to the Norse lore around them. He tried to leave them behind, but they returned to him. This makes them feel cursed. The weapons are bound to his past and to his identity as the ghost of Sparta. Using them in the Norse realm is not nostalgia. It is acceptance that the past cannot be destroyed, only carried differently. The Leviathan axe and blades of chaos have opposite elements, ice and fire. This contrast is useful in combat, but it also feels symbolic. The axe is Fey, restraint, cold focus, and the new life. The blades are Ares, rage, fire, and the old life. Kratos carries both because he is both. The Norse saga does not let him become new by pretending the old self never existed. The Draupnir spear adds wind and multiplication to that weapon language. With axe, blades, and spear, Kratos holds Fey's legacy, Ares' curse, and Sparta's reclaimed discipline. The three weapons form a biography. They tell where he has been and what he is trying to become. God of War's enemy design often reflects each era's mythology. Greek enemies include harpies, minotaurs, gorgons, cyclopes, satyrs, and undead soldiers. Norse enemies include Draugr, trolls, revenants, elves, hellwalkers, Einherjar, nightmares, and realm-specific creatures. This shift makes each pantheon feel distinct. Kratos is the same man, but the nightmares around him change language. Medusa and the Gorgons in the Greek games turn petrification into a weapon and hazard. The head of Medusa becomes a tool Kratos can use after defeating her. This is very Greek-era God of War. A monster becomes an instrument. The Norse games are more cautious about this kind of conquest, though they still let Kratos use what he gains. The tone changes around the same basic idea. The Hydra battle in the first God of War is one of the franchise's defining openings. Fighting a massive sea monster across ships immediately establishes the scale the game wants. Kratos is introduced not through quiet backstory, but through impossible violence. The opening is effective because it makes myth feel physical within minutes. The Colossus of Rhodes opening in God of War 2 serves a similar function. Kratos fights a giant statue brought to life by Zeus's scheme, and the battle becomes a moving puzzle of scale. The series repeatedly begins with something huge to establish, that Kratos lives in a world where architecture, gods, and monsters can all become enemies. Poseidon's battle at the start of God of War 3 might be the peak of that Greek opening tradition. Kratos fights a god while riding Gaia as she climbs Olympus, with water horses and titan bodies filling the screen. It is spectacle as apocalypse. The game begins at a level most stories would save for the ending, because God of War 3 is already the ending of a world. The stranger fight in God of War 2018 is the opposite kind of opening boss. It begins in front of Kratos' home, close, personal, and grounded. Baldur and Kratos punch each other through trees and rock, but the emotional point is invasion. The old Greek openings said the world is huge. The Norse opening says even home is not safe. The first Thor fight in Ragnarok blends both traditions. It is personal like the Baldur fight, but mythic in force. Thor arrives at Kratos' home after years of threat, shares a tense conversation, and then drags Kratos into a battle full of lightning, hammer blows, and old grief. It is a godly fight, but also a father confronting another father. God of War often uses doors and thresholds symbolically. Kratos opening the door to Baldur begins the Norse conflict. Returning home to retrieve the blades opens the Greek past. Entering Jotunheim opens Atreus' identity. Entering Valhalla opens Kratos' self-judgment. The series understands that crossing into a new space often means crossing into a truth. The title, God of War, changes meaning over time. At first it is Ares' title, then Kratos' throne, then a label of destruction, then almost a curse. By Valhalla, it can mean something else. Tyr proves a God of War can seek peace, and Kratos begins to imagine war godhood as responsibility rather than appetite. The same title slowly transforms from violence to service. Kratos' old oath to Ares is one of the most important bindings in the series. In mythic storytelling, oaths have power, and breaking them has consequences. Ascension focuses on this explicitly. Kratos' entire life after Ares can be understood as a man trying to break bonds. To gods, to fate, to rage, to guilt, to prophecy, and finally to the belief that he can only destroy. The gods in God of War are powerful, but emotionally flawed. Ares is cruel ambition, Zeus is fear of succession, Poseidon is pride, Hades is grief and resentment, Athena is wisdom mixed with manipulation, Freya is love turned controlling, Thor is obedience turned violence, Odin is curiosity turned domination. The series works because divine power magnifies very human failures. Kratos is not morally clean, and the games become more interesting when they stop pretending he is. The Greek saga lets him be monstrous. The Norse saga does not erase that. It makes him answer for it. This is why his redemption arc works better than a simple reboot. The old games remain part of the man. Redemption is not a reset. It is the hard work of living after the worst thing is true. God of War 2018 won many Game of the Year awards and helped redefine the series for a new generation. That outside fact matters because reinventions are risky. The franchise could have stayed in the Greek formula forever. Instead, it slowed down, aged Kratos, gave him a son, and changed the emotional centre from revenge to responsibility. The risk worked because it did not betray the old story. It made the old story matter differently. Ragnarok chose to end the Norse saga in 2 main games, rather than stretching it into a trilogy. Developers have discussed that they did not want the story to take too many years to complete. As a result, Ragnarok has a huge amount of narrative weight. Prophecy, war, Atreus' identity, Freya's revenge, Odin, Thor, Surtur, the giants, and Kratos' future all converge. It feels dense because it is carrying an ending. The official Ragnarok page says Kratos must decide whether he'll be chained by fear of repeating his mistakes or break free of the past. That wording is important because chains are central to Kratos visually and emotionally. He was chained to the blades of chaos, chained to Ares, chained to nightmares, chained to rage. In the Norse saga, the chain becomes psychological. Fear of the past can bind as tightly as iron. The phrase, "open your heart," in Ragnarok is one of Kratos' most important pieces of advice to Atreus. It is almost the opposite of what young Kratos would have believed. Opening the heart to suffering sounds dangerous because suffering once destroyed him. But older Kratos understands that closing the heart creates different destruction. Compassion is risky, but numbness is worse. Atreus leaving at the end of Ragnarok is bittersweet because it shows Kratos succeeding as a father. The goal of parenthood is not to keep the child close forever, it is to prepare him to go. Kratos' sadness and pride sit together. The man who once clung to rage now lets his son walk away with trust. That may be one of his greatest victories. Ragnarok's epilogue, A Funeral for Brooke, is quiet and devastating. It gives grief time after the war, and it does not force Sindri into easy reconciliation. This is important because big fantasy endings often move too quickly past personal loss. God of War lets the small funeral matter as much as the fall of Asgard. In the end, a friend's absence can feel larger than a realm. The secret ending of 2018, where Thor appears at Kratos and Atreus' home after Fimbulwinter, is one of the series' best teasers. It uses a dreamlike scene, a storm, a hammer, and silence. Thor does not need to speak much. The presence of Mjolnir tells the story. Consequence has arrived at the door. The Norse saga repeatedly uses the home as an emotional anchor. The cabin where Faye lived, the realm between realms, Sindri's house, Freya's camp, and later Valhalla's shore all serve as pauses between mythic danger. These spaces matter because the games are no longer only about moving from boss to boss. They are about what kind of shelter a violent world allows. Sindri's house in Ragnarok is one of the warmest spaces in the game, before it becomes painful. It gathers characters from different realms, creates conversations, holds meals, and becomes a temporary headquarters. After Brok's death, that warmth is broken. The same house feels different because grief has entered it. God of War understands that places change when people are missing. The wolves Skuld and Hati play a key role in Ragnarok's mythic sky. Their chase of the sun and moon connects to day, night, and the coming end. Atreus and Angerboda's section involving them gives the game's mythology a softer wonder. Not every mythic event is a boss fight. Some are acts of restoration, painting, and release. The use of murals and prophecy in the Norse saga gives the story a visual language. The giants write the future by painting it. This makes fate feel artistic rather than mechanical. A mural can be interpreted, hidden, misread, or fulfilled differently than expected. Prophecy becomes image, and images leave room for perspective. Kratos hiding the mural of his possible death from Atreus in 2018 is understandable and wrong at the same time. He wants to protect Atreus and perhaps himself, but secrecy is one of the things the Norse saga keeps challenging. Faye hides truths, Kratos hides truths, Odin hides truths, Atreus seeks truths. The difference lies in why truths are hidden and what harm hiding them causes. Odin's ravens serve as surveillance across the realms. In the games, destroying ravens becomes a collectible task, but in lore they represent Odin's hunger to see and know. The All-Father's power lives in armies, magic, and information. He watches, gathers, listens, and manipulates. The ravens make paranoia part of the landscape. Hugin and Munin, Odin's famous ravens, are part of that information network in myth and in the game's atmosphere. Their names are often translated around thought and memory. That is fitting for Odin, whose obsession is knowledge. It is also fitting for God of War, a series about memory as both wound and weapon. Raven Keeper and other Raven-related content in Ragnarok expand Odin's surveillance into combat and side activity. These optional elements make the world feel more occupied by Odin's reach. Even when he is not present, his eyes are. The realms feel watched long before the final war. Side quests in the Norse games are called favours, and that word gives them a warmer tone. A favour suggests relationship, debt, help, and community, rather than a simple task. Many favours reveal tragedies, spirits, lost creatures, family wounds, or environmental damage. They slow the main quest and make the realms feel inhabited by pain beyond Kratos' family. The Hafgufa and Lyngbakka side stories are examples of God of War's softer mythic sadness. Freeing huge trapped creatures becomes an act of mercy rather than conquest. These quests matter because they show Kratos and Atreus interacting with suffering that does not revolve around revenge. The world is full of beings who need help, alongside enemies who need killing. The Lyngbakka in Svartalfheim is especially memorable because Mimir's guilt is tied to it. Freeing the creature does not undo the years it suffered, and Mimir knows that. This is a classic Norse-era God of War idea. Doing the right thing now does not erase the wrong thing then, but it still matters. Repair is not time travel, it is responsibility in the present. The crater area in Vanaheim after the rescue of Freya opens into one of Ragnarok's largest optional regions. It contains dragons, side stories, environmental changes, and traces of old conflict. Its size is surprising because it arrives late and quietly. The region gives the world room to breathe after main story urgency, showing that the realms contain histories beyond the prophecy. Dragons in God of War are often chained, hunted, or tied to side quests. Freeing dragons in 2018 is another example of the Norse saga's interest in mercy. Greek Kratos killed giant beasts as obstacles. Norse Kratos still fights monsters, but the games increasingly ask when strength should release rather than destroy. The Greek Kratos would likely have mocked many of the Norse favours. Older Kratos completes them, sometimes reluctantly, because Atreus, Mimir or Freya helps him see value beyond efficiency. This is character development in action. He does not become gentle all at once. He becomes willing to spend strength on things that do not directly serve revenge. The menu lore, codex entries and character journals in the Norse games add texture to the world. Atreus keeps notes in 2018, often with youthful humour and curiosity. In Ragnarok, the codex perspective shifts more depending on character context. These details matter because they show how different minds interpret the same world. Lore is not neutral, it is personal. Atreus' journal drawings and comments in 2018 help make him feel like a child learning the realms. He records enemies, gods and discoveries with a mixture of wonder and attitude. This contrasts with Kratos' silence. The world comes alive because Atreus reacts to it. His curiosity becomes part of the storytelling. The God of War series has always used puzzles, but their tone changes. Greek puzzles often involve brutal mechanisms, sacrifices, and deadly temples. Norse puzzles involve runes, bells, light crystals, winds, sigils, and realm magic. The difference reflects the broader shift. The Greek world feels like a death machine. The Norse world feels like a harsh place full of hidden systems. Runes are central to the Norse visual language. They appear on chests, doors, stones, weapons, and murals. They give the world a sense of old writing and old magic. Because Atreus can read many of them, runes also become a way for him to contribute. Knowledge is a tool besides strength. The Nornir chests reward health and rage upgrades through rune puzzles. These chests are mechanical collectibles, but they also fit thematically. Growth in God of War often comes by reading the environment, as well as defeating enemies. The body becomes stronger because the mind notices patterns. Idun apples and horns of Bloodmead connect upgrades to Norse mythic objects. Idun is associated with youth and apples in mythology, while mead has deep mythic associations. The games turn these ideas into health and rage progression. Small collectible systems quietly tie mechanics to myth. Spartan rage and health upgrades together show the two halves of survival, endurance and fury. Kratos must survive damage, but he also carries rage as a resource. The Norse games make rage useful, while still treating uncontrolled rage as dangerous. That balance is the entire character in miniature. God of War's difficulty names often reference themes of balance, challenge, and godhood. The hardest modes across the series have become part of the franchise's reputation. This matters because God of War has always paired story spectacle with mechanical intensity. Kratos' mythic suffering is something wrestled with through timing, patience, and repetition. The 2018 game was developed after a long gap following Ascension, and it had to convince people that God of War could be more than the old formula. Cory Barlog returning as director helped connect the new game to the older series while changing it. This is part of why the reinvention feels confident rather than dismissive. It is made by people who understand the old rage well enough to age it. Eric Williams directed Ragnarok after working on every previous God of War game. That continuity matters. Ragnarok is not an outsider's sequel. It is made by someone deeply familiar with the franchise's long history. The game feels packed with callbacks because it is built by a team that knows the old language, even while closing the Norse saga. Kratos' old line, "Death can have me when it earns me," from Ragnarok became instantly memorable because it sounds like young Kratos and older Kratos at the same time. It is defiant but not reckless. He is not seeking death, and he's not pretending to be beyond it. He simply refuses to surrender to fear of prophecy. The line, "we must be better," becomes a moral echo across the Norse saga. It is simple, but it carries the weight of everything Kratos has done. Better than gods who abuse power. Better than fathers who devour sons. Better than warriors who call rage destiny. Better than the past. The line matters because it is not a claim of goodness. It is a direction. God of War's modern story is sometimes described as a redemption arc, but Kratos is not redeemed by being forgiven by everyone. Many people he hurt are dead. Greece remains ruined. Redemption here means choosing differently with the life that remains. It is not a clean absolution. It is a long discipline. That is why the story has weight. Kratos' relationship with Freya after Baldur's death shows that some wounds cannot be rushed. He accepts her hatred because he understands it. He does not demand forgiveness. In Ragnarok, their alliance grows through necessity and honesty. This is more mature than forcing reconciliation quickly. Trust returns slowly, and only after both act through pain. The Norse saga's treatment of gods is less about worship and more about families with too much power. Odin, Thor, Freya, Baldur, Heimdall, Thrud, Sif, Freya and Tyr all belong to networks of loyalty, resentment, grief and manipulation. This makes the pantheon feel like a damaged household, scaled up to cosmic size. The end of the world begins around a table as much as on a battlefield. The Greek saga's gods feel more distant and archetypal. They are huge, cruel, lustful, proud, jealous, and spectacular. The Norse gods are still mythic, but often more conversational and domestic. Odin can sit at a table, Thor can drink in a room, Freya can grieve like a mother. This change makes the later gods feel more psychologically intimate. God of War's violence has changed meaning over time. In the Greek games, violence is the language of the world. In the Norse games, violence remains necessary, but is constantly questioned. Kratos still kills, but he thinks about what killing teaches Atreus, what it costs, and whether it repeats prophecy. The series did not abandon violence, it made violence answer for itself. Kratos' final Greek act is giving hope away. His final Norse act, at least by Valhalla, is accepting responsibility. These two acts are connected. Hope without responsibility can become vague. Responsibility without hope can become punishment. Older Kratos needs both. He needs to believe a future can be better, and he needs to serve that future. The God of War franchise turned 20 years old in March 2025. PlayStation celebrated the anniversary with Dark Odyssey cosmetic content for Ragnarok owners, referencing Kratos' dark armor appearance from God of War 2. This is a small but meaningful anniversary touch. The modern game honours the Greek past without forcing Kratos to become that old self again. The Dark Odyssey appearance originally came from God of War 2 as an unlockable costume. Bringing it into Ragnarok as anniversary, content creates a visual bridge between eras. It lets the old aesthetic live inside the new game as memory and celebration. For a series about carrying the past, even a cosmetic can feel thematically appropriate. God of War's legacy is unusual because it has two very different peaks. The Greek trilogy defined it as one of PlayStation's great action spectacles. The Norse saga redefined it as a character drama about parenthood and change. Many franchises survive by repeating their strongest identity. God of War survived by interrogating it. Kratos is one of gaming's most recognisable characters because his silhouette tells a story. Pale skin, red tattoo, scar, weapons, bald head, heavy beard later on. But the reason he lasts is transformation, not design alone. A static Kratos would have remained an icon of anger. A changing Kratos became a character people could follow across decades. The series' use of myth works because myth is already about repetition. Fathers and sons, curses, prophecies, wars, betrayals, monsters, impossible tasks, and gods behaving badly. Kratos enters myth as a man who seems trapped by those patterns. The long story asks whether even a mythic figure can change. That is why the Norse saga's answer feels powerful. Change is possible, but never cheap. And now the old stories can grow quiet. Olympus can fade into ash behind the mountains. Midgard can settle beneath snow. The blades can rest without being forgotten. The axe can lean by the door. The spear can stand in silence. And the shield can stay folded until morning. Kratos began as a man trying to kill the source of his pain. He became a god, a destroyer, an exile, a father, and finally someone willing to serve rather than rule. 150 facts can pass like sparks from a dying fire. But the heart of God of War is simple enough to hold gently. The past cannot be undone, but the next choice can still be different.